Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 3rd Township Committee meeting. I will now salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started, I just wanted to make an announcement and ask for a moment of silence for two individuals. First, our 76-year-old resident who passed away recently of COVID. She was our 37th COVID death in our community. So our prayers go out to the family. I spoke with the daughter this morning. I also want to recognize David Cody Durkee, who passed away on July 27th. David grew up in Maplewood. He went to Columbia, CHS. He started in basketball and lacrosse and actually was All-American in lacrosse. David was the son of Raymond and Joan Durkin and brother to Chris Durkin, as well as three other siblings. The Durkin family has played an instrumental role in our Maplewood community, as well as Essex County. There was a quite significant service for David on Saturday. We showed outpouring of the community and beyond. So if we could just have a moment of silence for our 36th COVID death, as well as for David. Thank you. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2021 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2020, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Mr. Adams. Mr. Daffis.
Here.
Mr. DeLuca.
Here.
Mr. Lembrick.
Here.
Mayor McGehee.
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas desire of the governing body to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, the Township Maplewood does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation and deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes, and thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and good evening again, everyone. As publicly noticed, please be advised that at 8:30 p.m. sharp this evening, we will shift over and have a town hall meeting with Essex County Prosecutor Ted Stevens, his team, as well as other key stakeholders in the Musa Fofana case that is ongoing. So just please be advised at 8:30 sharp, we will be temporarily pausing this meeting, and we'll go back in if necessary, but we want to be prompt with the people who will be attending the town hall at 8:30 this evening. Our agenda for this evening is relatively light compared to previous meetings and months. We'll first start off with reviewing our budgets for our SIDS. We'll first start with the Springfield Avenue Partnership. So agenda item 5 through 7 rather, we'll discuss the budget and also the assessment and the rate. We'll move into, from our Springfield Avenue Partnership, we'll move into the Maplewood Village Alliance and go through a similar process where we will have a hearing on the budget and also talk about the assessment and the rate. From there, we move into public comment, which is agenda item number 11, agenda items only, and a limit of 3 minutes. From there, we will move into our monthly Board of Health meeting, which will be led by Deputy Mayor Daffis. And after that, we will go into our one and only ordinance, which is on final. This is an ordinance redefining our senior age and also revising who can be appointed to our senior advisory committee. From there, we'll have reports from departments, essentially a report from our CFO, Mr. Kaloje, who has joined us this evening. And any questions regarding his report, they'll be addressed at that time by Mr. Kaloje. From there, we'll have our administrative reports. We'll hear from Mr. Gimes, our administrator. We'll hear from Mr. Desiderio, our township attorney, and we'll hear from Ms. Fritzen, our township clerk. From there, we'll move into reports from elected officials. We will first hear from Ms. Adams. After we hear from Ms. Adams, we will hear from Mr. DeLuca. After we hear from Mr. DeLuca, we'll hear from Mr. Limbrick. And then after Mr. Limbrick, we will hear from Mr. Daffis. This evening, agenda item number 17, we don't have any discussion items, which is a first in 2021, but all the same, that's fine. From there, we move into agenda item number 18, our consent agenda, where we have several resolutions here on the docket, a total of 20. A lot of them relating to our police department and purchasing of various items. We'll be also awarding a new arborist contract. We also are awarding a contract for a fire alarm system. We will also have a resolution regarding bills and claims. We will also authorize the purchase of some body-worn cameras, various awards relating to our ADA improvements. We'll then, as always, we'll have a refund for tax overpayments. We'll authorize a transfer open space trust funds. Then also the hiring of a COVID-19 generalist assistant. We will also have a resolution of hiring a seasonal personnel staff person for our community pool. And then we will move on to look at the approval of closed session minutes for July 20th, but there are no closed sessions, but it's still there anyway. From there, agenda item 19 is public comment on any subject matter, and then we will adjourn. So that is our agenda for August 3rd of 2021. And with that, we will start off. Ms. Fritzen, I believe we have Springfield Avenue Partnership 2021 SID budget.
Yes, Mayor, that's the first item. Springfield Avenue Partnership 2021 budget. And item 6 is reading by title, resolution number 245-21. Read by title, Springfield Avenue Partnership budget. Now would be your time, Mayor, to declare a hearing, and I will indicate that all property owners have been notified of tonight's hearing, as well as publication of tonight's hearing in the Maplewood South Orange News Record.
And thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We'll now open up for a public hearing. Mr. Waltz, if there's anyone who would like to address the Springfield Avenue Partnership budget, they are now allowed 3 minutes to do so.
Have no hands raised at this time, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Waltz. Hearing and seeing no hands, we will close the public hearing, and I will now entertain a motion.
Well, I'll move resolution 245-21.
And I will second it. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Limbrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We now are at agenda item number 7, another resolution.
Yes, Mayor. Resolution number 246-21 is confirming the Springfield Avenue Partnership assessment and SID rate.
Can I entertain a motion?
I move resolution 246-21.
And I will second it. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
You're on mute, Deputy Mayor.
He said yes. He said yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Limbrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes.
The 2021 budget for Springfield Avenue Partnership SID is adopted.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and thank you to everyone and their efforts, Ms. Wallace especially for her work on this particular budget and her team as well. So thank you, Ms. Wallace, and also thank you for being here this evening as well.
Mayor, item number 8 is the Maplewood Village Alliance SID 2021 budget. And first up will be a resolution to read that budget by title, and that's resolution number 247-21. Read by title, Maplewood Village Alliance budget. Now would be your time to declare a hearing, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Would anyone in the public like to address the Maplewood Village Alliance SID budget for 2021? Mr. Waltz, do we have anyone in the public who would like to address the budget?
I see no one at this time, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Waltz. Seeing or hearing no one, will close the public hearing, and I'll now entertain a motion from Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the adoption of resolution number 247-21.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We're now on agenda item number 10.
Yes, Mayor, and I also want to indicate for this budget, for the Maplewood Village Alliance budget, same thing, all property owners were noticed. In addition to a publication in the Maplewood South Orange News Record indicating our hearing this evening. Item 10 is a resolution number 248-21, confirming Maplewood Village Alliance assessment and SID rate.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. I will now entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the adoption of resolution number 248-21.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes.
Mayor,
Thank you,
this
Ms.
budget as well is adopted for 2021 for the Maplewood Village Alliance. Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and thank you to Deb Yohannan, who is leaving us from the MVA, but we appreciate her service to our community and to the Village Alliance, especially during this time as she helped us, leading and collaborating to continue to get through COVID. So we want to recognize her service to our community and to the SID. We're now moving on to agenda item number 11, which is public comment on agenda items only. So Mr. Waltz, if there's anyone who would like to comment on agenda items only at this time.
Good evening, Mayor and Township Committee. We will now begin the first public comment portion of the meeting on agenda items only. If any meeting attendee would like to address the Township Committee, please use the raise your hand function. We will convert you to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak. Would anybody like to address the Township Committee at this time? I have no hands raised, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Waltz. That's thank you. We will now close our
I'll
public
get too
comment.
comfortable.
Yeah, it's like
That's the second item, public
Second.
agenda. Yeah.
Not supposed to tell people we're happy about that.
It's been a long couple months.
Yes, it has. Well, all right, moving on to agenda item number 12 is our Board of Health meeting. I'll now yield the floor to Deputy Mayor Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of New Jersey, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2021 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2020, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Adams,
Here.
Mr. DeLuca,
I'm here.
Mr. Lembrick,
Here.
Mayor McGehee,
Here.
Mr. Daffis.
Here.
We're
Thank
at
you.
Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the Board of Health has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting. And whereas desire the Maplewood Board of Health to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Maplewood Board of Health of the Township of Maplewood does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the Board of Health by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the Board of Health at all of its regular and special meetings.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Whatever.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We're all eager, it seems, to move things along this evening. I move that we adopt the minutes from our July 6th Board of Health meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis.
Yes, thank you again, Ms. Fritzen. I yield the floor to Health Officer Candace Davenport.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see that? Okay, so I'll move this along. Going into COVID and our nursing update. As for the month of July, we had 1,638 cases. So that's 85 cases in the month of July. I also want to preface that we also had, unfortunately, one death in the month of July. So that has brought us up to a township total of 37 total cases and total deaths. Of those 85 cases in the month of July, 25 of those cases were vaccinated breakthrough cases. So about 29% of our cases. 27 of those 85 cases were under the age of 12. So these are unvaccinated individuals and children. 26 cases have traveled outside of the tri-state area. So those are 32.5% of our 85 cases. And of those travel cases, 12 of those, or nearly half of them, are fully vaccinated breakthroughs. So while we are seeing breakthrough cases, traveling does contribute to it, both for vaccinated and unvaccinated, because there are different variants that are in different regions of the United States. But there are also people who are just going into, assuming normal, regular activities, like going into bars, going indoors, going to parties, visiting people. Unfortunately, we don't know their vaccination status when we join these activities. So there is the possibility and an increasing rate of COVID cases among us. I do want to say that while we have these breakthrough cases, just to put it in context, according to the CDC, 163 million people in the United States are fully vaccinated for COVID-19 as of July 26th. 0.004% of breakthrough vaccinated cases lead to hospitalization, and 0.001% of those breakthrough vaccinated cases lead to death caused by the disease. So I just want to reiterate that while we are seeing breakthrough cases, they are a small fraction of the total amount of people who've been vaccinated. So we can't emphasize enough that if you haven't gotten vaccinated yet, please get vaccinated. This is the COVID-19 Cali activity level report. We are now in moderate. Above, you can see how this was 2020, and then 2021, we are in moderate. Hopefully we will stay that way or go down to low, but we still need to get more people vaccinated. Here's the status for Maplewood vaccination stats as of July 27th. So you'll see that our numbers are increasing for those 12 and up, 18 and up, 65 and over, and 80 plus. So we are doing good with our numbers, but we still have to get more people to get vaccinated. Unfortunately, we are still seeing cases of unvaccinated people in our own community. In Essex County, our numbers are raising as well to about 62%. And so that is good, but we need to push it more. I just want to also give some good news that the Essex County said that they will be providing their mobile vaccination site to Maplewood, South Orange, and their mobile vaccination clinic will be located at Columbia High School parking lot on August 17th. So that's Tuesday, August 17th. This is just new information as of today. And it'll be there from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and available to all. So more information to come. We'll be working on a flyer with the school district on that, but I just want to keep you posted that we are still actively trying to get people to get vaccinated and make it as easy as possible to access vaccinations.
Ms. Davenport,
Yes, sir.
on that slide, before you move on,
Yes.
I just had a question about the 65 plus. It says 95% fully vaccinated, 8% first dose, so potential total 103%. I'm sure there's some statistical anomaly there that I'm not getting, but could you just explain that, since I think if people see that, they may sort of start questioning the accuracy of all the numbers if they see 103% of something?
Yeah, so I believe last month we also had it at like 101. The reason for the anomaly is that some seniors say that they live in Maplewood, but they might be at a long-term care facility in another location. Some seniors are still actively working, so they will get vaccinated at their place of work, but not necessarily where they live. And some people live in another location, but still call Maplewood their home, but they are, snowbirding or living somewhere else, maybe with their family member at that time, but they call Maplewood their home. So that attributes to the anomaly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir. As for July, as I mentioned, we have our COVID vaccination efforts. On July 6th, when we had our last Board of Health meeting, we had a Chamber of Commerce and Essex County Health Department vaccination event where we vaccinated 33 people. And our homebound vaccinations are still going on with 2 vaccinations completed. For those of you who need family members who are unable to get out, we do still offer the homebound vaccination program. So please contact our office and we'll be happy to coordinate that with you within the month. There's lots of talk in the news about the Delta variant. So I just want to give you some context of what we're looking at when we talk about the Delta variant. As you can see under the lineage, which is the first column, Delta, otherwise known as B16172, has been about 84% of the proportion of variants that were sequenced from viruses tested in the last 4 weeks. This has exceeded the amount of Alpha, or what was known as the B117, which used to be the predominant strain back at the end of last year. So this is really, really affecting a lot of our cases that we're seeing that are the breakthrough cases. They are the Delta variant. Here's another visual to help you understand that these different colors represent the different types of variants. As you can see, the times go every week or so at the bottom, and you can see that the copper gold is increasing. That is Delta. So starting in April, or at the end of April, it starts to increase dramatically. And here we are at our latest information as of July 17th. So it is predominant as the variant strain in our area. As of July 28th, Governor Murphy and the Commissioner of Health, Judy Persicelli, strongly recommended masking indoor settings with increased risk. This is again because of the high number of cases. Our trajectory is not going in the right direction, as well as the risk of the Delta variant. They ask that and recommend that indoor settings that they're referring to are crowded indoor settings that involve activities with close contact with others who you may not know, maybe fully vaccinated or not. Indoor settings where the vaccine status of other individuals in the setting is unknown, and where an individual may be immunocompromised or at increased for severe disease. So I do want to let the Township Committee know that this is a strong recommendation from the Governor and the Commissioner of Health, and they took their guidance from the CDC, who recommended it as well.
Ms. Davenport,
Yes, ma'am.
just wondering if you could opine a little bit on, I think Mayor de Blasio in New York is doing what Paris or France and Italy have done, which is to require proof of vaccination before going into public places like restaurants and bars. What are your thoughts on that? As a municipality, should we be thinking about certain restrictions, or, I mean, I know it's a can of worms and it's a big question, but it's something I've been thinking about for the last couple of days and wondering whether or not we should worry about it, or if we're sufficiently vaccinated in town that maybe not so much. I mean, I don't want our businesses impacted negatively, but on the other hand, there's the health aspect of it, public health.
No, those are really good questions and very thoughtful. So let me try to break it down. So as of now, the governor and the state health department have not given any further guidance on indoor settings like restaurants and things like that. They just gave this indoor setting generalization and a strong encouragement to wear masks. As for looking at proof of vaccination, any private entity can do that. And that is another mitigation factor or assurance that the people who are coming in, hopefully, are showing you truthful information, and that is their vaccination card and they are fully vaccinated. Some people may choose not to do this because, as we've seen throughout COVID, people feel uncomfortable having to police other people, especially if they're just like, for example, I'll use a restaurant, like wait staff, having to be the medical determinant of, is this true? Is this right? Do they have to? Does it make sense? Are they fully vaccinated? I'm not sure. That's a lot to ask of someone. And I think people might feel a little uncomfortable about that. That being said, there are many places that are doing that now. And it may become the norm, but as of now, I have not heard anything from the state that they're going to require that in any business or locale at this time. But if they do, I will definitely keep everyone posted.
So
Oh,
just to follow up on that, without the requirement or the mandate, if you will, from a government entity like ours to mandate proof of vaccination, do you have any thoughts on mandating mask wearing like it was when we started opening up, which is to say that you could go to a bar or restaurant, but anytime you left your table, you had to put on a mask, or if you're walking around putting on a mask, is that something we should be considering? Whether or not a private entity, of course, they can, and places like Target and different places are requiring masks. So I'm just wondering what your advice is on that aspect, or whether it should be something we should be considering on a municipal government level.
I think at this time, I think we know exactly like what you said. If you go into an indoor restaurant, for example, back a couple of months ago, we would say, keep the tables 6 feet apart. We, keep your numbers to the number of people you're sitting with small, wear the mask indoors, except when you start to eat. At this time, we'd still ask people to take advantage of eating outdoors. But if you're eating indoors, definitely, continue to do so. But social distancing and masking are still very good things that we can still do. I don't think it has to be a mandate, nor is it a mandate from the government at this time, but I always think it's a good recommendation to keep following these strategies. They are helpful. So whoever feels comfortable to do so should do so and still participate in, going into restaurants, going to see shows, things like that. But try to keep your distance from other people. And when you're in a crowd where you don't know what their immunization status is, put your mask on. So that's what I would always recommend, to use these very preventive strategies that always worked even before we had vaccinations.
so Ms. Davenport, provided that we're going to continue monitoring the situation, and we might deploy a phased-in approach, as we did when we got into this last year, 16 months ago, whenever it was. I mean, do you have a recommendation for us here locally at this time?
I would recommend for us to look at following the governor's and the commissioner of health's strong recommendation to indoor mask, especially in, at the very least, our buildings, our township buildings and our township facilities. I think it's a good example to follow, and they're following it because of the science and the data that is out there right now. Vaccination is always super important, but we can still do masking, which also helps us to protect ourselves, both for the safety of our employees and the safety of the public entering into the building. So that would be my recommendation.
So your recommendation is to require masking for all employees and the public when they enter our municipal buildings and any programming that we do in our municipal buildings. Is that right?
Yeah, it is a conservative approach that I would recommend to you at this time.
Okay.
So at
Yep.
this point, Mayor, I'd like to see if there's support from yourself and our other colleagues to move forward with this local recommendation at this time. I think it is wise to do this, and I look for your support and other support on the TC.
Well, thank you, Mr. Daffis. I think what's been very effective for us over these last 16, 17 months is listening to the science, listening to our health officer and her team. And if that's a recommendation that she's communicating to us tonight, I think we need to implement that. So I think we should require indoor masks in all of our facilities in the township. We should strongly advise and recommend all of our businesses of all verticals to have indoor masks inside their facilities, including restaurants, so that we can continue to stay ahead of this as we did when it first came out in March of 2020. So I am on board, and I yield the floor to my colleagues.
That's a motion. I'll second it.
Yeah, it's a motion, so seconded.
I mean, is this just to clarify, is this an instruction that we're basically, or guidance that we're giving to Mr. Gimes as administrator to, I mean, you know, we're not really, I mean, this isn't really going to be a resolution or an ordinance. We're really just giving policy guidance from the governing body to Mr. Gimes as administrator to carry out at the municipal level, right?
Exactly.
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm on board with that. I think, you know, Ms. Davenport, you know, has been steering this ship, you know, very well for the last, you know, I guess now we're coming up on 17, 18 months, you know, since this all began, and better safe than sorry. Let's err on the side of caution. And, you know, obviously I'd give Mr. Gimes the opportunity to weigh in if he feels strongly that this shouldn't be required. You know, he's the sort of the, you know, the COO, the guy who's in the building supervising operations day to day. But as a policy, I think that's, you know, that would be a wise decision to move to protect our employees and members of the public who are coming into our municipal buildings.
Thank you, Mr. Lembrick. Mr. DeLuca, as the chair of the Office of Emergency Management, your thoughts, please?
Yes, thank you. So I'm a little unclear here. So we're still under a state of emergency here in Maplewood, and that gives us the power to make decisions. And I don't understand, as the Board of Health, why we just don't say that we are mandating mask wearing in municipal buildings.
No,
I
we don't
understand
say that.
providing Mr. Gimes with guidance. We're just making a decision and then he has to implement it.
That's what we're saying. That
Okay, it didn't sound like it.
we're saying that we would, we're trying to be collaborative, obviously, with everyone, all of our colleagues, but the recommendation is, that's been moved and seconded, although we haven't taken a full vote here. The recommendation is to mandate masking for all in our municipal buildings.
Okay, and then the other point is, two other points. We are going to be putting up signs that say you must wear a mask to go into this building, right?
Yes.
Because before we were a little, you know, we said you had to have it on, you had to do that. You have to wear a mask.
Yes.
Okay. And so once we get done with this, I'd like to come back and have a conversation about employees and getting them and having a requirement to have them vaccinated.
Okay, you want to do it now, Mr.?
No, I want to finish this vote and then we can come back and have that conversation.
Okay.
I just ask one question for clarification on this vote on the masking.
Yes.
So prior to my arrival here in Maplewood, the mask requirement was in place, and it was, I guess you would say, it was operating that if somebody was in their office or at their desk, you know, they weren't wearing a mask, but then obviously when they left that space and interacted, they were. Is that still the implementation that you're contemplating with this?
Yeah, that is the correct implementation. When you're in your space and you are 6 feet and or more away from others, you can remove your mask. However, if you're moving in the public space where you're going to move closer to people or around public equipment where other people are using it, please wear your mask.
Just wanted to be clear, that's all.
Yeah, so I mean, this is what is being required by the governor in state agencies, by the way. I mean, at DCA, we're required to wear masks times while we're in the building, especially in common areas of use. But obviously when we're at our desks, we don't have to, but we need to come in with one, we need to exit with one, and every time we walk around, we need to have one on. So that's what we can do here too.
And the county is also doing that as well. They never stopped taking off the mask or have an indoor mask removal. They kept it on the whole time, and they will be keeping it for the duration of the Delta variant as we're monitoring it.
Yep. So can we have a roll call on this? Ms. Fritzen?
Ms. Adams?
Well, I just want to clarify. So this is a requirement for her wearing masks in all of our municipally owned buildings, correct? For anyone entering the building.
Right, and our employees. Yep.
And our employees when moving around.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Mr. Jimes, are you clear on your directive from the governing body here?
Yes.
Great. So now let's move forward with Mr. DeLuca's other point that he wanted to make. Mr. DeLuca?
Thank you. So, you know, Hoboken and some other towns in New Jersey, New York, the federal government, they're requiring proof of vaccination by employees or weekly testing. And I wanted to throw that out there because I think we are asking the public to interact with our employees, and we have to give folks some assurance that they're going to be safe if they do that.
I'll jump in here, Mr. DeLuca. I agree with you. The statistics that Ms. Davenport shared with us showed that essentially 89% of our residents ages 12 years and up are fully vaccinated. So we're at technically that herd immunity number, but we also know that those who are fully vaxxed are now getting the Delta variant of COVID-19. And I think we do need to align with making sure that our employees are safely vaxxed. So I am on board in requiring employees or suggesting that employees are vaccinated or getting tested on a high cadence, which is aligning, to your point, with the federal and also other municipalities. That's how we help each other, by focusing in that regard. So I'm on board with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also just want to point out that this variant, even fully vaccinated people can get this new variant and pass it on, even if they don't get very sick. So if they can, if they can pass it on, then what we're really protecting, in my mind, are anyone who lives with people who cannot, or because of their age or some physical reason, cannot be vaccinated. That I think it's our responsibility to require our employees to either be vaccinated or be tested on a weekly basis. And I would just follow the federal employee guidelines. My only question is, are we going to run into any problems with FMBA or PBA? And if we are, I'm willing to stand up to this, as I think it's important for public safety and public health, especially for those under 12 and for people who cannot be vaccinated. I think it's our responsibility.
I agree, Ms. Adams. I totally agree with you. And I think this is a good segue to Mr. Desiderio, perhaps, and Mr. Jimes. I think we could probably do this so long as we provide a religious exemption. Is that correct, Mr. Desiderio?
Yeah, I don't see any reason not to. I mean, you're giving the option. You don't have to get the vaccine if you don't want to, but you have to be tested.
Right.
I think it's rational and reasonable, and I don't have any problem with it from a legal standpoint.
And to my knowledge, I haven't heard anybody give a religious exemption for testing. There may be, I may be wrong, but if we're giving them the option of getting vaccine or getting tested.
Yeah, I've been in very active discussion with the Labor Council on this for the last, several days, very recently. So we've been looking to roll something out, but given the obvious issues raised with collective bargaining, we've been kind of working on something actively. So we have been on that. We'll continue to work on it very quickly and have some type of policy in place, subject to what the Labor Council believes we're allowed to do. But I agree, obviously, in everything you're saying.
So I would move that we do a vaccine or testing program and we authorize Mr. Jimes, Ms. Davenport, and Mr. Desiderio to implement it.
Second.
Seconded. Ms. Fritzen, can we get a roll call?
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
Yes.
Lembrecht,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Mr. DeLuca, was that it on your end as an Office of Emergency Management?
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. So Ms. Davenport, back to you and carrying on with your fulsome report again this evening. Thank you.
Thank you all for your votes on those two very important issues. I appreciate it. I will work with Mr. Jimes and Mr. Desiderio regarding the implementation of that and how much time you need to be tested or how often and what the cadence is.
Thank you.
As of August 2nd, I wanted to include, as of yesterday, Governor Murphy also announced that there is a vaccine requirement for workers in healthcare facilities and high-risk congregate settings. So we are not off the course. In fact, this is where a lot of places are going. Obviously, these places are more have a higher risk communities. So you're looking at hospitals, healthcare facilities, long-term care facilities, nursing homes, healthcare facilities. But with every location, you will have people who cannot be vaccinated because of a medical condition, or are immunocompromised, or for whatever reason cannot get the vaccine, and so they are vulnerable. So by requiring vaccination, they are hoping that this will reduce the spread in these facilities. Moving on to a different topic, which is foodborne illnesses. So I just want to say that summer is usually, as you know, when we see our foodborne illnesses increase. We've had 5 in the month of July. So there is a impact to our residences regarding foodborne illnesses, and it's one of our things that we do when we investigate and monitor communicable and infectious diseases. We look at where people are getting foodborne illnesses. Did they drink some contaminated water? Are they traveling? Are they hiking? Are they camping? Did they have a party where the food was not kept at the correct temperature where bacteria begins to grow? So these are things that we're watching out for. And the diseases that we had this month were Shiga E. coli or STEC, Campylobacteriosis, usually found with contaminated chicken, Shigellosis, and Salmonella. These are all common pathogens. So we try to do education to make sure that people prepare their food properly and keep it at a correct temperature, both in heat and in cold temperatures, to prevent bacteria from growing in food. Moving on to health promotion, health education, and our vulnerable population outreach. Just want to give you some good news. Our summer meals program is going strong. We are now in week 6 of 8 of the summer meals program, And the Township of Irvington has recognized and will bring it up to Trenton, to the New Jersey Department of Agriculture, and highlight the Maplewood Summer Meals Satellite Facility as a model facility. One of the things that they liked about us is that we have been giving out 150 breakfasts and lunches every day since June 28th. We have an active and vibrant and diverse volunteer base, and consistently we've been reaching populations, and the effort is growing. So just wanted to say recognize kudos to Marcel McNeil and all the volunteers that are bringing the summer meals program to us as we enter into August. The Mental Health Association of Essex and Morris is one of the relationships and partnerships we have been cultivating in the last month or so. Two of the projects that they have available and are working with us to address are a project for assistance in transition with homelessness, or their PATH program. There is unfortunately a small but consistent number of people who are homeless, who wander and frequent in Maplewood. And one of the things that we want to do is, with the Mental Health Association, they come out and they make a connection, develop trust and a relationship with these individuals, and offer these consumers the ability to engage with shelter or food or identification or reunification with family members or mental health assistance, should they desire it. So this is a really important thing and a lifeline for a lot of them that I hope we can facilitate and continue. Mental Health Association has also met with our two chiefs and the Community Board on Police regarding public safety and their co-responder model that they're piloting in West Orange. So as the township is looking to hire a social worker to respond to crises, they can be a really good mentor and asset to the social worker for resources that are out in the community, because everything needs, there's a crisis and then a follow-up. That's one thing that we've been missing in our efforts. Moving on to environmental health, excuse me. So information has already been provided to the community on this, but it is important to mention that part of the role of all local health departments and the state health department is environmental health, and that includes recreational bathing safety. This includes one of the things that we do, which is an annual inspection of our pools, hot tubs, and spas and beaches where applicable in other towns across New Jersey. On July 17th, there was an incident at the pool, and one of the things that we did as the health department is we assisted by reaching out to 8 families who identified as being impacted. Luckily, most of them resolved in about 4 to 5 hours, and all are healthy as of the last time we followed up with them. So that is a good thing. We also asked for pool water testing by Garden State Labs, but it was also done by CFM as well as our pool staff. So pool water testing is super important to make sure that the pH, chlorine, and other factors are at safe levels for reducing bacteria in the pool. We also completed the pool reporting form with the Department of Community Services and submitted that to the State Health Department. So the State Health Department requires that all local health departments submit a serious injury or drowning form for any event or adverse event that happens at a recreational bathing facility. So we completed that and they were satisfied with our report. Finally, emergency protocols are to be revised for our addressing at the pool of any emergencies, and will include contacts for testing of pool water during an emergency with Garden State Labs, and calling for emergency response. And we have shared this CDC resource, which you'll see here. The CDC has created these posters that can be placed at recreational bathing facilities like our pools for the use of pool chemicals safely and the storage of pool chemicals. So there are unfortunately thousands of preventable injuries that occur each year at pools. So they created this informational infographics so that staff will know what to do and what to look for. So we've shared that with the pool staff and the Department of Community Services. So hopefully that will be helpful. Finally, addressing one of the requests that Ms. Adams had regarding mosquito resources. So I believe that your question was what is in various chemicals used by private entities. So what I did was I reached out to the Essex County Mosquito Control. They are our governmental resource at the county. One of the things that I learned was that they will actually come out to private residences and will speak to residences about where mosquitoes are and what their breeding sites could be and what are potential hazards around the home. They work with the local health department to then go to the home and help them with property maintenance. And then they will actually spray on a private residence. So not only do they do public spraying across the county, but they will actually help out private residences as well. So they asked if you wanted to call them, they'd be happy to answer any phone calls from any private residences. And also Eric Willages, who is the superintendent from the Essex County Mosquito Control, said that he'd be happy to come and speak to the Environmental Advisory Committee anytime you'd like him to come in. For the county, as you know, they use different types of chemicals than a private entity does. Most of them use BTI, which is a naturally occurring bacterium found in soil. So it's non-toxic to remove mosquitoes and mosquito breeding sites. However, they did say two things about using private entities. One is if you're a resident and you're looking to hire a private mosquito company, is to one, ask them directly what materials they use and find out the toxicity of those, hopefully, because of number two, which is you should check that they are licensed with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection as a licensed pesticide applicator. If they are, they know exactly what chemicals can and cannot be used at the different toxicity levels and who benefits and where it's beneficially applied as a barrier treatment or otherwise. So these are all things that, you know, every private mosquito or pesticide applicator needs to be licensed and also recertified every so often by the state DEP. So as long as they're taking that training, they do know what to use. And that's something I think people may not know to ask for that. So just wanted to give you that as a resource.
Thank you for that. I do have just one, so there's no regulation or nothing requiring these companies to actually discern whether or not there's actually a need. Often when mosquitoes are, when this is an issue, the advice is always, standing water and things on the property that are, attracting mosquitoes and yada, yada, yada. But we have, our houses are relatively close together. So while something might be fine on my property, it may not be so great on a neighboring property. But whether or not there's even, and then there's other issues that may be leading toward this other than, just a way for companies to it's a business creation, right? Whether or not this happens. So I guess part of my main concern, and we don't have to go into it now because I know we have to cut off soon, is the environmental impact on other pollinators or other parts of our environment that are healthy and are necessary for our life that are being impacted by these things. And I know it's state regulations, DEP and everything. I just think it's something that people need to be aware of, that they're not just killing mosquitoes. And so
Yeah, and it's a very good point. One of the things that you reminded me of, Ms. Adams, is Eric mentioned that when they do spray on private property, they do inform other neighbors as well as those who are who have bees or who are bee supporters. They have a beehive in their facility. They will notify them that before they spray. It probably is a very good practice to do that as a courtesy to your neighbors. That if it might be okay for me, it might not be okay to the neighbors directly next to me or behind me.
Right. I don't think that actually happens, but okay. It'd be nice if it did, but I don't think it does.
So
No, I'm just saying it would be a nice thing to do.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in here, folks. I think we need to move along. This is a very important topic, however, and you know what I'll do? I will put this on the next code enforcement agenda because there's an opportunity here to see if we could ascertain which providers there are in the area, if they're licensed, and possibly entertain our powers to require them to register, and that way create a streamline of better education and better practices in our municipality. So I'm going to leave it there because we need to move on. Are there any questions for my colleagues for Ms. Davenport?
Mayor, I do have one question. And that's, Ms. Davenport, do we have, any latest, guidance or even, intelligence that you're receiving from your colleagues, either the state or federal level at, a schedule of when we're expecting people under 12 to be eligible for the vaccine? As the father of a 10-year-old daughter who asks me seemingly every day whether she's eligible yet, or whether she can, she's tall, whether she can lie about her age and just say she's 12 and get it. I think, our kids, as they're thinking about going back to school, are starting to get impatient. Do we know whether we're getting close to approval, and whether, the county and the state are working on a rollout plan that's going to include the kids 11 and under?
So I don't believe we can institute a rollout plan until we have the final approval. And I do believe that those tests are going into more testing for that age group, because they just want to make sure that the vaccine does not result in any side effects that can be detrimental, because they are growing developmental bodies. But I think that the aim is, and everyone sees it coming, is the beginning of school year. So we want to get these kids vaccinated as possible. So we're really looking toward near fall, but no clear date as of yet.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from my colleagues?
No,
Mr.
just congratulations, Ms. Davenport, on your recognition by Sustainable Jersey.
Yes.
Well deserved.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Our hero.
Indeed, indeed.
Our sustainable hero.
Mr. Waltz, are there any questions from members of the public for Health Officer Davenport?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, we have one hand raised. The first up will be Heather Soslovsky. We'll transfer you over to a panelist and allow you 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Sorry about that. I apologize. It transferred me in and out. Okay. So, I mean, I think Nancy was starting to get at this, but I'm a little concerned that there isn't a wider mask mandate than what you just passed. It's nice that frontline government employees won't have to ask members of the public and others to put on a mask when they enter a municipal building, but you're asking that individual businesses potentially be targets if they want to enact the very same things. And as was mentioned, if they do, you're asking frontline staff, people like waiters, people like cashiers, to enforce that, which seems incredibly difficult and unfair. And as was noted, when you have the government behind you, it seems so much simpler to just say we're following the rules. I think returning to the mask mandate, particularly indoors, makes a lot of sense. I would note that when things like this were happening last year, we even had a mask mandate outdoors in downtown, because people get close to each other. At this time, 1/3 of Maplewood's cases from last month are children too young to be vaccinated. The kids gave up more than I could have ever imagined had you told me in February 2020 what they would give up to help keep adults safe. All we're asking for adults to do to keep children safe is wear a piece of cotton on their face. I don't think that is particularly difficult to ask people to do to protect our children. Further, we're talking about variants that, in fact, are having breakthroughs that aren't just being transferred. I know you all talked a little bit about that. You can pass it on, but there are people getting very, very ill who are vaxxed, okay? Variants brew in unvaccinated people, and they harm everyone, vaccinated or unvaccinated. They make vaccines less effective as variants occur. We know that. That's basic science. What I don't know today is the person who died last month, anything about them, or if they were vaxxed or their demographics. Apparently, we've stopped giving out that information about a year ago. I'm not really sure why. I would note that a whole lot of people from our community have been in Provincetown in the last month. Approximately 750 people have had an outbreak there and brought it back to their homes. 74% of those people were fully vaccinated. Provincetown is almost a fully outdoor town. It is incredibly frightening. And while I know people think that that occurred mostly and initially did during some very large outdoor events where people were very close together, it continued last week during Family Week, which is
30
really
seconds.
the most conservative action type of weeks, because it's people with their children there, people who are generally being careful. There were outbreaks even last week while families were there. I would really ask you to consider protecting the entire community, not just the municipal population and your own offices.
Thank you, Ms. Kozlowski. That's definitely important stuff for us to consider, and we will do so. Mr. Waltz, do we have any other members of the public interested in asking a question of Health Officer Davenport?
I have no other hands raised at this time, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Waltz. With that, I move that we adjourn our Board of Health meeting tonight and agree to reconvene September 7th, our next Board of Health meeting.
Second,
Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca,
yes.
Mr. Lembrick,
Yes.
Mayor McGehee,
Yes.
Mr. Dacus.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Mr. Mayor, I yield back to you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Ms. Fritzen, if I may, I'd like to, as we now need to move into our town hall though, but out of respect for our CFO, I was wondering if I could table agenda item number 13 and quickly move to agenda item number 14 to see if my colleagues have any questions for our CFO, and if not, he can move forward with the rest of his evening.
I do, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question. A couple of residents reached out to me to ask Mr. Cloget, and he did explain this to me in an email as I asked the same question. But basically, what happens with the bond ordinance, with the payment for the 911 system, should the referendum be put on the ballot for November in opposition to the artificial turf field. And therefore, since those two items are together on one bond, how we can go about funding the 911 system if the artificial turf gets voted down on referendum. Can you just clarify that, Mr. Cloget, for the public, so that I don't have to, change your words and explain?
Mr. Kaloje, can you, in the memo, I know it's a number 2 item, if you want to repeat that second paragraph, that'd be good.
Certainly, for the public's edification, if there is indeed a challenge to the bond ordinance and it'll go to referendum, we'll prepare a resolution for a special emergency appropriation, which we would have for the first meeting in September. That would allow us to move forward with the console, and then depending on the result of the referendum in November, if it goes down, we'll put up a separate bond ordinance, since it was the intention of the TC to bond for the console to begin with. If the referendum stands in November, then we wouldn't need to take any action at all, and the special emergency appropriation would be voided out.
Thank you, Mr. Kaloje. Any other questions for Mr. Kaloje? All right, hearing none, Mr. Kaloje, I wanted to get you out here to spend some time with your kids as we move into our town hall. So thank you for your time, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Ms. Fritzen, we need to now temporarily go into need to move into the town hall meeting. So I'll yield the floor to you for that process, and then I'll go through the process introducing our panel for this evening.
Okay, Mayor, so this is, this portion coming up has been advertised that we would be leaving Township Committee business to convene for a town hall meeting with Essex County Prosecutor's Office and specifically Theodore Stevens, the Essex County Prosecutor, and that the Township Committee meeting will convene and resume following this town hall meeting. Other than that, we're by law advertised, and this is a part of our Maplewood Township Committee meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and good evening. And thank you for everyone who has joined us. I will go around the room briefly and then yield the floor, because I see that Prosecutor Stevens has several members of his team here who I don't know personally, so I'd prefer that he introduce them. But I will start off by recognizing our chief who is here with us, Jimmy Duvall. I also want to recognize Mr. Daryl Jeffries, who is the head of the NAACP for the Oranges in Maplewood. I also want to recognize our former mayor, Fred Perfetta. And I'd like to recognize at this point, Mr. Stevens, and yield the floor to him to introduce his detective team.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to everyone here in attendance. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to meet with us to discuss an extremely important matter that we are dealing with here in the Township of Maplewood. I am Theodore Stevens. I'm the acting Essex County Prosecutor and have been in that position for almost 3 years right now. I am here today with some very, very important members of our office, and I'd like to introduce them to you briefly. First, we have our first assistant prosecutor of the office, Mr. Ramesh Sugdeo. Also, we have the chief of our investigators, Mr. Mitchell McGuire. Also, we have the head of our victims unit, Ms. Pam Mccauley, and also our public information officer, Ms. Kathy Carter.
Hello.
You're going to hear from several members of them, at least the first three, Mr. Sudeo, Mr. McGuire, Ms. McCauley, a little later on today. But I did want to just address you first and to first talk about several important things with regard to, of course, we're all here, with regard to the murder of Musa Fofana, which occurred on June 6th of this year. First and foremost, chief among everything else, we want to acknowledge the family's loss and extend our condolences to the family and really our condolences to the entire town of Maplewood, as I'm sure the entire community shares in this loss. We too share in this loss, and we are taking it as seriously as we can. A little bit about the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, some people may not know. The Essex County Prosecutor's Office is not only the best, but the largest prosecutor's office here in the state of New Jersey. We have the dubious distinction of being, while only one of 21 other prosecutors' office, we handle about 30% of the violent crime in the state of New Jersey. And we're doing this and doing all the investigations in the midst of this once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, where masks are now the norm, the order of the day, which adds some additional difficulty to every case. But because we are so busy, we are very good. We handle a lot of cases and we become expert in very many aspects of that. Now, while we also investigate more homicides than any other office, even though that is the case, we treat every homicide, in fact, every crime, as if it happened to a member of our family. That's our motto, and that's how we approach things every day. And so on that note, I've expressed that to numerous individuals along the way, and I guess I've been remiss in not also addressing the mayor of this great town, who certainly we've talked with on a regular basis. We've gotten to the point where he calls me Ted, I call him Frank now. And while that is something that I enjoyed a good relationship with Vic DeLuca before him, I'm able to kind of pass that along as well. And we also, as you should know, have a tremendous relationship with the Maplewood Police Department under the great leadership of Chief Duvall. So all parties are working together in unison without any sort of a negative interaction in order to move forward with this. To be frank with you, this murder is particularly important to our office because, one thing, it's a very difficult case. ECPO has been laser focused on trying to solve this case, and we handle various aspects of this investigation on a daily basis. Now, unfortunately, as I'm sure all of you know by now, because this is an ongoing investigation, we're not going to be able to talk about the specifics of this particular case. However, we thought that one of the things that would be important, in addition to answering those questions which we can answer, is to give you an explanation, a feel, so to speak, as to how we investigate a case such as this. There are three parts to our office. There are the assistant prosecutors who try the cases. There are the investigators, the detectives essentially, who investigate the case and bring it forward. And then there's the administrative staff. And that is, Ms. Mccauley is part of that, where they do so many things, for instance, one of which is to interact with the family, the next of kin, the victims, if you will, in order to make sure that there is coordination between the family and this office. So we're going to I'm going to introduce each person individually and ask them to give you a couple of minutes as explanation as to what we do in the office and how that applies to this particular case. And I'd like to start with First Assistant Ramesh Sideo.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm the first assistant. I've been in the office for 23 years, and the role of the assistant prosecutor especially in a case like this is unique. We prosecute our homicide cases vertically. That means that at the time that a case is pronounced a homicide, there's an assistant prosecutor, there are task force members that are detectives that are all working on the case at the same time. So if information comes in and a search warrant needs to be done, a search of a cellular telephone, a search of a business to get a video, a search of private residence, anything like that, the assistant prosecutors do the legal paperwork. We make applications to Superior Court or even to the municipal court to get search warrants or other documents that will help us do these searches. We analyze the proof that is brought before us to see if there's sufficiency to go forward with a case from the investigation stage to the trial stage. What's important to know with our offices, while we do fight hard crime, we do fight crime very hard. Our motto is to seek justice, to serve justice, and to do justice. And what that essentially means is the Constitution reigns supreme. So, when we investigate a case, it's not that hard to always wrap up, because we are looking in terms of bringing proof, the quantity of proof that would satisfy the standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the trial standard, which is a standard to actually get a conviction, not just to make an arrest, to actually have a conviction that will stick. That'll considering the case law, the constitutional law, our very liberal appellate courts that we have in the state of New Jersey. So it's really a global view of the investigation that we take. I'll tell you this: I was in the homicide unit for 9 years, and one thing that I was quite pleased with is the fact that everybody was participating. That our chief prosecutor Theodore Stevens, he's briefed on the progression of the investigation, that our chief of detectives, Mitchell McGuire, that he is constantly involved in every aspect of the case, as well as the attorneys. So it's really a broad global view that we take of these investigations, especially the investigations that deal with a loss of life. But they can be challenging, but I can tell you this: we are constantly working on the case, and you're just going to have to. Well, there's I guess a lot of angst and impatience about this particular investigation. You're going to have to let us do our work, but all of us are involved, from the lawyers, the clericals, the administrators, to this wonderful set of task force officers that we have. And I can assure you we're doing everything that we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Stevens, do you want to introduce someone else from your team, sir?
Yes, I will. Thank you so much. I always have to remind myself, Mayor, to come off of mute. So I appreciate that. Thank you. What we're doing somewhat in reverse a little bit. While the normal course is, of course, to do the arrest and then to do the trial, but we had Mr. Sadeo go first. But equally important, and we can't get to, as I said, can't get to a trial unless we have made an arrest. And that is at the end of an investigation that's run by our great detective staff. And our chief of detectives is Mitchell McGuire, and he's going to give you a little insight into how that happens. Mitch?
Thank you very much, Prosecutor. And everyone, thank you very much for taking your time out of your meeting and your busy evening and being with your family to talk to us. The prosecutor mentioned something very early on in his remarks that really does stand true to what this office is about. And that is we investigate every crime as if it involved one of our own family members. And I can tell you that is what we live, that's what we breathe, and that's what we believe when we're out working these investigations. As the first assistant said that, these types of crimes, in particularly homicides, are very, very complicated crimes to solve. It would be great if we could go out and every camera or surveillance footage that we have covered every square foot of a place where where the incident happened. It'd be great if everybody we talked to was very open-minded and told us the truth right up front. And it would be great if we had some visibility or some crystal ball to see exactly what happened and not rely on witness statements or had some really solid evidence to do so. Unfortunately, in the majority of the homicides that we have, these are very bad people who commit very bad crimes, and they make a very concerned effort to try and cover their tracks and avoid many of these different things that we would use to go after them. So it does become a mixture of a couple things when we're looking to solve an investigation. And each investigation is very unique. The circumstances surrounding the witnesses or how we interact with the witnesses, potential suspects, and or technology that may be involved to help us is unique for every case. I can tell you that as a standard, the first thing that we do when we get to a scene is to secure the scene with the help of the local police department. We try and gather as much information in that first couple of hours, obviously so before we even get into the investigation, one of the most important parts in the investigation is identifying who the victim is, right? So we can make next of kin notification. That is so important to us to ensure that if there is a victim that is there, we don't have a proper ID, to be able to get the proper ID and make the appropriate notifications to the families to let them know that there has been an incident potentially involving their family member. And then as we progress through it, that first 48 hours is so key. I'm not sure how many people have ever watched the TV show, The First 48, and I refer to it because I used to watch it all the time in the beginning because it was so crucial to try and solve an investigation in the first 48 hours of it. But things have changed so much over the last couple of years with the involvement of technology and legal process and some of the other things that have been afforded to investigators to go through. It has become one of those things where investigations, that first 48 hours is really about us gathering as much information as we can so we can actually start our investigation. And in this particular instance, as the prosecutor pointed out, this is a very difficult homicide for many reasons. One, it involved a young man. A young black man who was killed in the middle of a park, and without knowing all the details or giving up all the details, there was not a whole lot for us to work with in the beginning. But over the last 8.5 weeks, the detectives in the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, along with the APs and the members of our task force that are consistent from other municipalities, have worked and gone through many, many different iterations of identifying witnesses, talking to people from the neighborhood, people that aren't from the neighborhood, talking from people from neighboring towns, being able to follow evidence that has led us outside of that general area into other places in the Essex County. So with all that said, I only say all this to let you know that the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, along with the Maplewood Police Department, we are doing everything we can. We are leaving no stone unturned. We are talking to everyone we have identified and we need to identify and talk to. We are using technology that's afforded to us, not only in our bag of tricks, but also with our federal and state partners to ensure that we do our best to try and bring some closure to this particular case. So I thank you for your time. And as the first assistant said, I hope that you guys would be patient with us and know that while people are very concerned about this, most of us on this call from the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, we don't sleep at night thinking about this case and many cases just like it to ensure that we bring some kind of closure. So thank you.
Thank you, Detective McGuire, and being here as well. Thank you for your words. Mr. Stevens, I'll yield the floor back to you for other remaining members of your team.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Third, and certainly not least in this, is a young lady named Pamela Mccauley. Pam is the head of our victim witness unit. And victims and witnesses are our stock and trade. That's who we deal with on a daily basis. We happen to have the benefit of having Pam run our unit, and Pam is probably the most seasoned and experienced and certainly the best person doing what she does in the state of New Jersey, and we have her here in Essex. And so without further ado, Pam Mccauley, please, why don't you tell the audience what you do?
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about the Office of Victim Witness Advocacy that's located within the prosecutor's office. So forgive me, I'm asked because I'm still in the office, and I hope everyone can hear me, but our mission is threefold. So we provide victim and witness assistance, criminal justice orientation, and community outreach. We realize that when, no one gets up and says that they want to, to be a crime victim, and then when something as horrible, terrible as a homicide occurs, we have, myself and my staff, are uniquely placed within the office to dedicate 100% of our efforts to help support and advocate on behalf of the victim's family, to give them a voice and help them to maintain their standing in the criminal justice system. We provide crisis intervention, social service, mental health information and referrals. As I said, the criminal justice orientation, a lot of our time is spent in contact with victims' families to keep them apprised of the changes in the status of their case as their case progresses through the criminal justice process. And that is really very, very important. So our focus, as I said, where the attention and the demands and the focus is on prosecutions and the detection of an identification of the perpetrators. Our efforts are exclusively focused on the needs of the crime victims. We see them, we hear them, and most importantly, believe them. We are here to bring about the support, the comfort that people need, the safety that people are desperately trying to recapture when these types of incidents become their own personal catastrophe. We do, as the prosecutor said, as the chief mentioned, we don't sleep. We are available. We have, and we're mobile, so we are not satisfied with those who are in crisis trying to access services and to navigate systems of care in the throes of crisis. We want to put the information about our services out there. So again, I thank you for this opportunity just to share very briefly what we do in the office. We always ask, and our position is that we are never going to give up on the passionate pursuit of justice on behalf of those whose voices have been muted or are not able to speak for themselves. And in return, we just hope that you won't give up on us either. So thank you again. And if you have questions, I will put my contact information in the chat box. And you should also know that we have spent considerable time with both victims. In this case, the family of Ms. Fofana, and there is a secondary victim, and we are reaching out to support him and his family during this very difficult time.
Thank you, Ms. Mccauley. And, just to reemphasize what you're saying, I've been in contact with Ms. Fofana. She is trying to join us as well. We're having some technical difficulties, but hopefully we'll get her here and she'll be part of the town hall and panel. This is the mother of Musa, of course, as well.
Yes.
If I may, Mr. Stevens, I'd like to pivot over for a minute and introduce the rest of the panel here and start off with our chief, Jimmy Duvall, and just give him a second to say a few words. And then from there, we'll hear from our former mayor, Mr. Perfetta, and of course, from Mr. Jeffries from NAACP. So, Chief.
Thanks, Mayor. I only have a couple of things. And the first thing I want to indicate is I can tell you from when this tragedy occurred, there has been no lack of coordination between the prosecutor's office and the Maplewood Police Department and our detectives. I could tell you that we have a detective assigned there working on this case. I can tell you that there is no delay or lag in information between the prosecutor's office and the police department. They're not running one investigation and we're running another. That's not how that works. We are working as a team. We are supporting them and they are supporting us. I can tell you this is an active investigation, as indicated before. As Ms. Mccauley mentioned before, I got a call last week from a member of the prosecutor's team at just about midnight related to this case. So I can tell you that the case is being investigated and we're being informed. And the team with our assistance, of course, this tragedy is certainly our top priority, and no time or efforts are being spared, Mayor.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you for being here this evening as well. A situation like this is a tragedy for our community, and it takes a community. They say it takes a village, but it takes a community to work together in collaboration with the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, with our police department for justice. And with that, I'd like to introduce our former mayor, Mr. Fred Perfetta, who has been working with a team from Maplewood and South Orange and beyond, if you will, to really do a couple things. And most importantly, that's raise the awareness about Musa's murder to help find the actors and bring justice. So I now like to yield the floor to Mr. Perfetta.
Thank you, Mayor McGehee. And thank you, Prosecutor Stevens, for that enlightening description of what's going on. I'm sure that's going to be comforting to a lot of people who are concerned, because obviously they can't hear what's going on day to day. That would interfere with your job and you can't get justice in that fashion. So hearing the process that's ongoing and the passion and the dedication and the concern that you're bringing to this is, I think, very comforting. And I'm sure the people listening tonight will find it to be so. And it's comforting to hear from Chief Duvall about the level of cooperation. That's comforting also, because I know what a good Chief Duvall is, and I'm glad that he's part of this process and that you're all working together to bring about the end that we all seek and hope very, very fervently that we achieve soon. I want to tell folks about what's going on in the community, especially on the reward front, because we think that's playing a part in this whole panoply of resources that are being brought to bear on this tragedy. And most people know that we now have a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of the killer of Musa Fofana. I don't think that we see that level of reward all that often, but in this case, it's special because Musa was so special and this community is so special. We started out with a $10,000 reward, a generous donation from the Sheriff's Crime Stoppers Fund. And then the community came together and the public donations totaled $40,000. So that's how we got to our $50,000 number. And that, I think, demonstrates the concern and the interest and the energy that the people in Maplewood and South Orange also, because it's the same, it's a joint school system, are bringing to bear on this whole effort. What we did when we were gathering this money and it became a newsworthy event, we got a lot of publicity, and a lot that didn't come just by happenstance. There's a woman in Maplewood, Rosemary Ostman, who dedicated herself to contacting her media sources, which she knows professionally, and that's why there was part of the reason why there was such good publicity in media, in papers, and even on TV. I know, by the way, that Kathy Carter, whom I'm seeing here for the first time, although I've talked to her quite a bit, played a big role in that also, so I should acknowledge that. But when we got to the $50,000 number, we decided now it's time to go public with the information. So we printed up thousands of these. I guess it's backwards, right? But you can see that it's across the top, $50,000 reward, very prominently. We printed up thousands of these flyers, and thousands of them by now have been distributed. We also developed a map with the help of law enforcement of areas adjacent to the Underhill Sports Complex, which would be key to disseminating this flyer in. And those are areas in Maplewood, South Orange, Irvington, and Newark. Then we put together a team, and I must say there's been some great dedication and work by some really passionate volunteers. Rhea Moken Beck in South Orange is a coordinator of this volunteer team, and in Maplewood it's Mia White, and they have put together about 30 people who've gone around and disseminated this flyer. And this is hard work. There's a lot of houses involved. So let me tell you what they've done. They have gone into these areas and they have gone house to house. And this flyer goes into people's homes in all these areas. It goes into all of them. And it goes on telephone poles. And it goes into bodegas and shops and bulletin boards all across this area. Thousands of these have done that. And they're all over the telephone poles in the area of Maplewood in Concern and in Irvington and in Newark. And I can say to you now that about 75% of this area that we've outlined as important has been done in that fashion. We got some important areas up to do, but that's an incredible amount of work. People who have run for office know what that's like when you're campaigning. And this is hard. This is tough. It's the same sort of thing, and it's been done. And it's been done with a whole lot of love and a whole lot of concern for Musa, and it shows what kind of community we have here. And we want you to know on the prosecutor's team that we're behind you. We're working hard too, and we want to do everything we can to help in this effort. I can't thank these folks enough for what they've done in distributing this information. And at the end of this week, I believe you're going to see on Springfield Avenue, at the border of Irvington and Maplewood, a big 14-foot by 4-foot banner with this across the top, $50,000. Nobody's going to be able to miss that if they're driving along Springfield Avenue. $50,000 it's a lot of bucks. And it's gonna be seen by everybody who travels that route. So we hope, Prosecutor Stevens, that this is gonna prove to be of some aid to you in your efforts. And if there's anything else we can do to help, if you need a team of volunteers, we got them. So, and we stand ready to do what's necessary to bring justice for this tragedy to the Fofana family. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Profeta, and thank you for mentioning Rhea and Mia and Elizabeth and John. Just so many people that have put boots on the ground to make this happen. So that's what I meant by it takes a community to collaborate with our amazing law enforcement team at the county as well as the municipal level. But one of the things that's a big challenge is because of the action of illegal guns. And unfortunately in our community recently, this is not the only issue where illegal guns have been leveraged. There's been an unfortunate incremental issue that happened as well on Hughes Street, which has been documented. But we know that part of that process is pushing to get rid of illegal guns. And one of the people that's leading that charge in Essex County as well as at the state level is Daryl Jeffries with the NAACP. And I appreciate him being here with us this evening. And I'd like to yield the floor to him to provide a little bit of context for our listeners tonight. So Mr. Jeffries, I yield the floor to you.
Thank you, Mayor McGehee, and to all the panelists here, Prosecutor Stevens, old and dear friend, and Mayor Profeta, and I think former Mayor DeLuca too. Yes, on behalf of the gifted and talented members of the Oranges and Maplewood NAACP, we want to first express our profound condolences to the Fofana family and to express our profound concern for, as the mayor let in, this gun culture that and this pandemic of guns, particularly in the hands of our young people. For us at the Oranges and Maplewood, we are on a mission. It's about leadership and legacy. We are about putting young people into leadership positions. It's about engagement, engaging them, providing them with scholarships and other resources to become the best citizens that they can become. At the local level, the Oranges and Maplewood, which is the third oldest in the nation, third oldest in the state of New Jersey, and we're the oldest in the state of New Jersey and third oldest in the nation. And we have a very active agenda for social justice in the state of New Jersey, in Essex County, in the Oranges and Maplewood. It's about identifying the opportunities for young people to flourish and to understand the forces that are arrayed against them. We are under siege like never before, our community, with voter suppression, and we are just had a turnaround from the White House on the eviction situation for many people with who are renters. There's so many issues impacting our community, and we are trying to provide here at the Oranges and Maplewood the kinds of programs. We have 13 standing committees, and we have a very active youth, young adults committee, and a youth works committee, as well as we are very, very active with our AXO, which is the national and state level competition for academic and cultural and technological STEM involvement for young people. We are deeply concerned about the conflict resolution at the point of a gun for young people. It seems as though they have been enamored with this kind of behavior in our communities, and that, you know, and I know that the prosecutor's office is doing all they can, as well as the police chief, to solve this case. It's an atrocity. It's a tragedy of the first magnitude, and we're deeply concerned about, you know, how our young people engage with each other, and that how they can resolve conflicts without violence, and particularly a fatal, violent behavior at the point of a gun. And so we're trying to provide those kinds of programs, meet the young people where they are. We have some very, very active and very bright and energetic young people leading their committees for the Oranges in Maplewood, the state level as well as the national. We are all deeply concerned about what's happening in not only Maplewood, but in communities across the state and across the country with respect to this gun culture and gun violence in our communities. It's an epidemic, and it runs contrary to our advocacy for social justice. And so, you know, we will do all we can on our end to continue to provide the kind of the brand of leadership and thought leadership in our community that will help to make our communities isles of tranquility.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffries. And I wanted to say, I think the public has an opportunity now to hear from the Essex County Prosecutor's Office to get understanding the construct and the process, understanding how we collaborate from a law enforcement perspective at the municipal level. We've heard about external resources from the community to drive awareness, to fight for justice. And then we heard about the holistic situation, which is illegal guns and some of the challenges we have in our overarching community. So now, as I continue to try to work with Ms. Fafana, and I'll work on that as we continue the town hall, I think now is the opportunity to open up the floor to my colleagues as well as the public to ask questions that they may have. Please be respectful. We're going to try to do 3 minutes like we always do. But Mr. Walls will open the floor to the public for any questions, as well as my colleagues for Prosecutor Stevens and his team, Chief Duvall, Mr. Jeffries, and Mayor Perfetta.
Hello, everyone. I'm actually going to be taking over the public comment section right now as Nick's Zoom has crashed and he does not currently have internet access. So as per usual, anybody who's interested in partaking in public comment, please use the raise hand feature and you'll be converted to a panelist and able to speak for 3 minutes. I am seeing no hands, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett. Would any of my colleagues like to address Prosecutor Stevens, his team, or anyone else on the panel at this time? And I can't see everyone.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, only to thank Prosecutor Stevens and his team for being here tonight, for taking the time. You know, our community, I know, has been asking for transparency and communication. And I know, from talking to our chief and others that, there's a lot of limits in terms of what information we can give the public. But I think this is a really good effort that we've made tonight from Prosecutor Stevens and Mr. Sugdeo and Chief McGuire and others to be here tonight to talk about some of the efforts they have undertaken, how these investigations and these cases are pursued, and to really show this community this is a case that they're still actively working on, and this is one they're taking personally, and one they're working diligently to pursue all leads on, and are still very hopeful that they'll be able to bring some closure and a good resolution on. So I want to just thank them, and Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for your efforts I know this is something that you have not let up on, both in terms of bringing this community meeting to us tonight and also for your other efforts. So thank you, everyone. We'll continue to hope and pray that, these efforts will ultimately lead to the result we're hoping for, which is justice for Musa and his family.
Thank you, Mr. Limbrick. Would anyone else, actually, we do have Ms. Fofana with us calling in. So I'm going to see if we can make this technology work and see if she can unmute herself on the phone and yield the floor to her. So Ms. Fofana, if you can hear me, if you can unmute your phone, you're able to speak at this time.
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing, Ms. Fofana? You're now in the on the panel.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's frustrating. I've been trying to put my computer through, but I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm late.
No worries at all. We're happy to have you here this evening. We have Prosecutor Stevens here with his team, Detective McGuire, Ms. Mccauley, and Mr. Sadeo. We have Mayor Perfetta here, who has been working closely with Rhea and Mia and Elizabeth. We have Chief Duvall here, as well as Mr. Stevens from Mr. Jeffries, rather, from the NAACP. So everyone's here and listening to you, and wanted to yield the floor to you to maybe give some words to the public about how you're feeling, what are you thinking, and anything along those lines.
To be honest, I do talk to the prosecutors every other day, and it's always be patient, and we are working on the case. We have our top people on the case, but for me, and that's not enough, because since my son got killed, and I still have not had any solid anything that will make me to be okay. My son is not here, and I know that even though if they catch the person, he's never going to bring my son back. But if they're able to also catch this person that also did this behind bars, I will be able to sleep at night. I've not been able to sleep at night, and every day is always wondering in my head what's going on, because they don't really tell me much about the case. It's always, Ms. Fofana, be patient. We are working on the case, and even today I did talk to them in the morning, and they also showing me they are working on the case. That for me, I know they are working on the case, but I can sleep at night. I would need something that will make me to sleep at night. You understand? So that's
Yes.
where we are.
No, yes.
Since the whole case, since the 6th and up to now, it's still the same thing.
Yes, I would say that I'll speak for myself personally, Ms. Fofana, and that is ever since June 6th, that Sunday, I haven't been able to completely rest as well. And I think that if, as comforting as this could be, just know that the community is behind you 100% with whatever efforts they can, with their energy, with their money, with their time, to find that end goal where you may rest. And I know that is challenging and even frustrating when you want more from the prosecutor's team and others. But I do believe they are working the case, that they're committed to justice for Musa. And I personally, as I know we've spoken, several times. Yeah. I thank you for your patience. I know it's not easy. And I am, working collaboratively and bringing your message. We all are, forward. And I pray for you and the family, and I just want you to know that we're going to keep pushing so that you can rest. And I just want to say that to you publicly, as I've obviously said these things to you personally as well. And we thank you for being with us this evening as well.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
Mr. Mayor, if I can also chime in and also indicate how this has been very extremely difficult for all the members involved from the prosecutor's office as well. We are working on it as tirelessly as we can, and I wish I could share more information with Ms. Fofana to show that the real progress that's being made, but our hands are tied with regard to that. I will rely on what words Chief Duval indicated. He's getting calls at up to midnight or so from our folks, and that in and of itself speaks to the level of effort that when something needs to be done or can be done, it is being done. And I just can pray as much as anything that for your continued patience with regard and your understanding and your just belief that we really are doing everything that we can. On that note, I also just want to thank former Mayor Profeta for his efforts in bringing what, to my mind, has been an unprecedented community response with a $50,000 reward, which is not insubstantial by any stretch of the imagination. So that even with that, however, even with the $50,000 sitting there, it has not yet been able to bring the kind of a break that every case needs. It is a factor, and it is something that will keep it in the news, which is extremely important, and ultimately may be one of the factors that really wins the day, so to speak. And we want to thank him and all the citizens who participated in that. So collectively, between the the efforts of those people in our office and the tremendous community support and resolve to make sure that this case does not go unheard and to the extent we can is resolved as quickly as possible. I just want to acknowledge everybody for their effort in that regard.
Thank you. Thank you, Prosecutor Stevens. So I think at this point, we didn't have any questions from the public. And my colleagues didn't have any questions. So at this point, if anyone has any closing remarks, we'll entertain those now, and then we will adjourn our town hall and go back into session.
Mayor.
Mayor.
I'd just like to say something to Ms. Fofana, because
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, I know. I see you. I see where you're coming from. I just want to bring to you the knowledge that this outpouring of community support in Maplewood and South Orange is like something I've never seen before. You had that candlelight vigil and you had that rally, and that's touched the hearts of so many people that the outpouring of money and physical energy and work is like nothing that I've seen before. If you could see the people going door to door in all over the area here that's involved and handing out these flyers and putting them indoors on very hot days and working like that, and they've covered about 75% of the relevant area. That's a tremendous amount of effort, and it speaks to the love they have for you and for Musa. And if that can bring you any small comfort, I hope that it does, because you have an enormous number of friends who love and want to bring you peace.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Profeta. Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to thank Prosecutor Theodore Stevens and his incredible team for being with us tonight and speaking to the public, speaking from the heart, and also giving some context and color in how complicated these investigations are. And we definitely recognize that preserving the integrity of the investigation is critical to justice for Musa, right? So that is why we can't share information, specific details about the investigation. Prosecutor Stevens, though, I think it would go a long way to the community, for the community to hear that this is still very much an active investigation. That's something that, you know, the community, we hear from the community about their anxiety, and from Mrs. Fofana herself, that, you know, as time goes by, not that this case isn't important, not that you are all not working really hard to solve it, but that it isn't active any longer. So please, sir, while we still have you for a couple more minutes, would you kindly underscore that this investigation is still a very active investigation, which means in pursuit of all leads and evidence?
Sir, I can say without any hesitation or any risk of contradiction that this is an active investigation. And by that, I mean, we are pursuing active leads. We have by no way have we hit a wall. We have active leads, which we are pursuing immediately and have been for the pendency of it. But going forward, we are pursuing new and active leads, which we are very hopeful will bear fruit.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis, and thank you, Prosecutor Stevens. I want to thank everyone for being here this evening. I know many will watch this in the days and week to come, and I think it's just good for our community to be able to see firsthand what the process is, the team that's working actively on this investigation, as we move forward for justice for Musa and peace for Ms. Fofana. So thank you, Prosecutor Stevens. Thank you, Chief McGuire. Thank you, Chief Duvall. Thank you, Ms. McCauley. Thank you, Ms. Carter. Thank you, Mr. Jeffries, and thank you, Mayor Perfetta. And of course, thank you, Ms. Fofana. Thank you all for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for having us. And thank you to everyone, all the citizens of Maplewood. Thank you so much.
Yes, and to Ms. Fofana, on behalf of the Oranges and Maplewood NAACP, we wanted to express our condolences and also to express our willingness to stand with you, stand by you, and you should feel free to reach out to us. Anything that we might be able to do to help you get through this difficult hour.
Thank you. I also wanted to thank the mayor, and I also wanted to thank the prosecutor's office, and I want to thank everyone in Maplewood and South Orange and all the people that have been going out, you know, to share the flyers. And I wanted to thank everybody for your love and your support and for your prayer. Me and my family, we are very grateful to everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Fofana.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Sadeo, as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. Thank you for having us.
Good night, all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Fritzen, can we open back up and start with agenda item number 13?
Mayor, agenda item 13, as we reconvene the Maplewood Township Committee meeting of August 3rd. Ordinance on final passage, ordinance number 3042-21. It's an ordinance to amend chapter 59 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Seniors Advisory Committee. This ordinance will redefine a senior as an individual having reached the age of 62 and will revise who are certain appointed members of the committee.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Would anyone like to speak on redefining a senior having reached the age of 62 and revising who are appointed members to our senior advisory committee.
Hey, Mayor, Ms. Joan Crystal would like to speak. We will convert you to a panelist and we'll allow you 3 minutes to speak.
Ms. Crystal, you have the floor.
Hello?
Hi, Ms. Crystal.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I just want to thank the Township Committee for making these very important updates to the ordinance which governs the Maplewood Seniors Advisory Committee. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crystal. Mr. Waltz, does anyone else like to address the Township Committee on Ordinance 3042-21?
I see no one at this time, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Waltz. Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. I will entertain a motion from Mr. Daffis.
What's going on here?
I can hear you, Mr. Daffis. Now, Mr. Daffis, you're now on mute. Mr. Lindbergh, would you like to move it?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead with acknowledgement that Deputy Mayor Daffis did the work on this. I'm going to go ahead and move it. I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis? Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. We are now going to move ahead to agenda item number 15, taking into account that we heard our CFO's report for the departments. So we are now at agenda item number 15, administrative reports, and we'll first hear from our Township Administrator, Mr. Jimes. Mr. Jimes, I yield the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few short items tonight. As you mentioned, they had the CFO's memo. Just not to repeat anything, but I concur with the analysis on all accounts within the memo as it relates to our financial position and the funding and all the various bond ordinances that were referred to. We've had a couple meetings, one including today regarding the library, and we continue to meet with the subcommittee and with the committee of the library, Mr. DeLuca and myself, along with some other relevant staff members, moving forward that in a procurement and purchasing method to make sure we can be as efficient and as quick and as possible. As it relates to the police department outage that I referenced last week or last meeting, there's a purchase there regarding the emergency service of the UPS. That, as I also mentioned, is going to be reimbursed by the insurance company. And as it relates to various consent agenda items, all the purchases were either purchased on the county co-op and quotes were sought, and that was all done properly. Separately, the larger amounts related to the DOT grant and the CDBG were bid. All the bid documents in order and are in order, and in both of those cases, the low bid is the awarded vendor. With that, I'll reserve any questions for any of those items coming up, or if you have any questions now.
Thank you, Mr. Jimes. Any questions for Mr. Jimes? Hearing none, thank you for your report, Mr. Jimes. We'll now move on to our Township Attorney, Mr. Desiderio. Mr. Desiderio, I yield the floor.
Mayor, I have no report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Desiderio. Any questions for Mr. Desiderio at this time? Seeing and hearing none, I thank you, Mr. Desiderio, and I will now yield the floor to our Township Clerk, Ms. Fritzen.
Thanks, Mayor. I just have one item to report, and that is that we will be having another filming in Maplewood Village on Thursday, the Girl Scouts USA, and we're able to work that out and have everyone involved. There'll be some police assistance, so it should go extremely smoothly. So happy to make that happen for the Scouts and also for the Township of Maplewood. That's all that I have.
Thank you, Ms. Fritzen. Any questions for Ms. Fritzen? Seeing and hearing none, I will close our administrative reports. We'll now move on to agenda item number 16, reports from elected officials. We'll first hear from Committeewoman Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. As you requested, I'm having a very brief report so that we could get that important town hall meeting done tonight. I just wanted to let the public know that many have probably noticed the Civic House Bridge in Maplewood Memorial Park has been under construction. It is a big project that we have been working on for a few years now with the Historic Preservation Commission and the Maplewood Memorial Park Conservancy, and meeting with the engineers and architects and everything on each bridge. The Duck Pond Bridge will be going out for bid this fall, probably not to get under construction until next very early next spring. So I just wanted to let the public know I've gotten a couple questions like what's going on with them. We're trying to restore them at no small price, but we very much value and we were funded $150,000 from an Essex County grant for the bridge under construction right now. So these are extremely valuable to the preservation of Memorial Park. So we ask people to just be patient as those get underway over the next year and a half. They'll still be going because the library bridge will be after that. So that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. We'll now hear from Committeeman Mr. DeLuca.
Thank you, Mayor. I have three quick items. First, as Mr. Jimes says, we're moving rapidly with the library project. Seems like we have a meeting every day. But September 17th, we will be closing the Baker Street building. And that's so we can move things out and start getting that building ready for the work that's going to take place. And so on October 4th, we will be relocating adult services over to the emergency management building, which is at 129 Boyden Avenue. And also the children's services will be going starting on September 18th. All the children's services will be at the Hilton branch of the library. So there'll be some changes, and there's some changes where you get your books and all that. We'll be working all that out, but you can go onto the library website. It's very detailed what's going to be happening there. So this is going to be an exciting time, and we're moving forward. Number two, I'm happy to announce that we're in the process of closing on a sale of our affordable housing home on Franklin Terrace. And I know Mr. Desiderio is working diligently with the buyer's attorney to get all the details finalized. And lastly, last Friday night, we kicked off our 8th year of the Gazebo concert series. We had nearly 400 people there. It was unbelievable. And we have another concert coming up this Friday in Afro-Cuban, and we'll be having another food truck with a Puerto Rican cuisine, and also hopefully an ice cream truck. You know, it's just amazing to see so many people there. When we put that gazebo, I think it was about 10 years ago or so, I got to tell you, I never dreamt that we would have, I hoped that we would, but I never thought we'd get, you know, almost 400 people to come up there at nighttime on Springfield Avenue to enjoy music. And you know, even we heard before with Ms. Davenport, you know, we're doing the food distribution there. So that gazebo has really become a major part of our lives here in Maplewood. And so I'm just really happy about it. And that's it. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. That's a great one. Mr. Limbrick, yield the floor to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few quick items. Reminder that the Community Board on Police is having its monthly meeting tomorrow night at 7:30. That's on Zoom. The link is should be available on the Township website. A week from then, next Wednesday night, the Public Safety Committee will be having its monthly meeting. That will also be at 7:30 and on Zoom. So that will be Wednesday, August 11th. And finally, just want to say to members of the public who weren't able to tune in last week that, we had a very, I think, informative public meeting last week where we met with our colleagues from South Orange, the village president and the board of trustees to talk about the status of our plan for consolidated fire services. And I would urge those residents who are interested in learning more. There was a significant presentation in the beginning from our mayor and from the village president, and there were representatives from Manitou, our consultant, Mr. Jennings was there, and also from the shared service czars from the governor's office were there. So it was a really good meeting. We had some lively public comment afterwards, but certainly the first hour or so, anyone who wants to be brought up to speed, I think that's would be a really good use of time if you want to learn about the two towns and the shared fire service that we're pursuing and hopefully going to be consummating in the near future. And I want to thank Mayor McGehee and Committeeman DeLuca for their continued work to bring that shared service, as well as Administrator Chimes, working with South Orange to make that happen. It's going to make our community safer and also save our taxpayers money. It's going to be a win-win. So, Mr. Mayor, that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Lindbergh. We'll now hear from Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you can hear me now, and I apologize for my technical difficulty earlier. Thank you for Mr. Lembrick's assistance again in moving our final revised Senior Advisory Committee ordinance. Mayor, I have one item tonight, and that is a pretty big deal, frankly, as the liaison to the Maplewood Village Alliance, and on this evening where we adopted the 2021 budget for our Special Improvement District, the Maplewood Village Alliance. I'm delighted to announce that we have a signed lease, a new grocer going into the former King's spot. Yes, we do. They are Greenway Market. And for those who may know Greenway Market, they have other locations in New Jersey and New York. They most recently went into the former King's in Ridgewood, New Jersey. We will be doing a full press on this in the coming days with more information about them and the operator in Maplewood and when they intend to open. As some people have already noted, not only have they signed their leases, but they have also taken possession, moved in, and have filed construction permits. So many people have noticed that there's a cleanup going on there right now, and they're going to be furiously working to completely renovate the inside of that space and bring us a beautiful full-service supermarket that we all should be proud of and that our residents are going to love. So more on that coming. Right now, we're waiting from corporate headquarters to approve the name of the market. We prefer Maplewood Greenway Market, and they're looking at Greenway Market of Maplewood. So we'll see which wins, but there we're going to be, hopefully by the end of the week, we will have coming soon signs up in the windows to get people excited. And as I said, we will do full press with more details shortly in the coming days. That's my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Daffis. I'm so happy that it's now public, and I'm glad that our first world problem is a Greenway, a Maplewood, or Maplewood Greenway. That's the beautiful thing.
Just don't put the coming soon signs up too early till Vic will remember, like back in South Orange when they had the coming soon signs up for like 2 years and nothing ever came. So
This is a great win for us. It's a long time coming, and Yep, I bumped into them a couple of days ago when they were getting their permits coming down the stairs in Town Hall, and I was so excited. So this is great. Thank you, Mr. Daffis, for that report, and it's great for our community. Following my request to my colleagues this evening, I just want to thank Ms. Fofana and the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, Mr. Mayor Perfetta, Mr. Jeffries, and Chief Duvall, and I have no report. So with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 18. We have no discussion items, and we are now on the consent agenda. Mr. Daffis?
Mr. Mayor, let me get my agenda open here. I was hoping that we could pull out.
It's 238-21.
238-21, yes. That is the resolution requesting American Rescue Funds from the County of Essex. And we covered this in our recent Finance Subcommittee meeting, Mayor, and I'll yield to you to explain why we are withdrawing this.
Yes, and for those who did not read the memo that Mr. Kaloje sent out, where it's basically all the details of this are in there, but as requested, I reached out to the county regarding additional ARP money or funding that was to be publicly distributed through the county. The fact of the matter is that there is no money in that regard. The money is really coming from the state. That is, the state will be sending that money directly to the county, to municipalities. It will not be money from the counties. After having a conversation with the county exec's office, I asked them to follow up. They did. They reached out to Congressman Sherrill's office, and they confirmed what they communicated to me. So essentially, although we were led to believe there was money, there is none, and more details are in terms of the process itself, which is basically state to municipality in the memo that you received on July 30th from Mr. Kaloje. So that's why we're pulling this resolution. So I'll now entertain a.
I second.
There you go.
We need a motion to do that.
Motion for one.
Mr. Daffis made that motion.
Yeah.
No, I just moved to take that out.
Oh, I move we adopt the consent agenda with the exclusion of item number 8, resolution 238-21.
I thought that
Sorry,
was
Mr. Lambert.
Lembrick's try.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Fritzen, please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Lembrick?
It lacked a certain elegance, but I'll vote yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes.
It was a lot shorter.
Mrs. Fritzen, what are you doing with regard to 238? How are you marking that?
I'm going to mark that as being withdrawn from the agenda.
Can we just have a vote on that, please?
I move we withdraw 238 from the agenda.
Second.
Second.
Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor McGehee?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Fritzen, and thank you, Mr. Desiderio. We're now on agenda item number 19, public comment. Any subject matter, limit to 3 minutes. Mr. Waltz, I yield the floor to you to conduct the process.
Is he back?
I thought I saw him over here. Well, Ms. Barnett, whoever wants. All right, that's a good point.
Hello, yes. I believe that Nick is back, but I'm not sure of what all permissions he has in his current role in the meeting. So I will be once again running the public comment. So if anyone is interested in speaking, please use the raise hand function. You'll be converted to a panelist and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett.
I'm seeing no hands, Mayor.
Awesome. Well, seeing no hands, we'll close the public hearing for this evening. And I'd just like to say before we adjourn, I want to thank Mr. Waltz. I want to thank Ms. Barnett, and I want to thank Mr. Gimes as well as Chief Duvall for, again, being with us, as well as Ms. Fritzen and Mr. Desiderio for being with us in these long hours during these long meetings. It's really appreciated. I know you start your day early and you finish it with us. So just want to say thank you for being here with us. And with that,
I move we adjourn.
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you, everyone. Good night.